let go, let go, let go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 4 of Two Shots in the Ball. I'm Neil Gordon, here again with our good friends, head coach Matt Skinn. How you doing, Matt?
Great. How you guys doing?
Doing really well. How you doing, Adam?
Now, what's up, everybody? Feeling good?
Nice. Looking forward to taking on the men's semifinals here. We're going to really deep dive into the UMB X game, and we'll kind of run through the vsDAL game. But we have the better of the two games. We're going to break it down quarter to quarter. And I'm interested to see how you guys saw the game and how it went. It was another crazy one. UMB makes it close in the end. But we'll talk about the first quarter first, which ends 22-22. Coach Skinn, what do you think? UMB just kept their legs rolling from quarterfinal Friday, and they competed with the fresh legs of X.
Yeah, I was interested to see how X was going to come out and see what they were trying to establish. But it seemed early in the game after rewatching it that they were running a lot of actions to get Nava some play and some shots early on. I thought they might throw it into Roker a little bit more early to start. That's kind of been their MO over the last 4 or 5 years, is that they really want to throw the ball inside and let their posts go to work. But it seemed like they were running a lot of ball screen, flare screen for Nava to kind of get him in space and get him going. And you know, I think I talked about it on one of the other podcasts about just their volume game, about how they want to get shots up and kind of chase after it. And I felt Nava kind of got going. They ran that flare screen, went baseline for a pull-up to start the game. Looked really good, especially as a first-year player. And everybody else kind of, you know, took their place as the momentum and flow of the game started early in the game.
Yeah, and that baseline, Jay, you mentioned was the literal first shot of the game for vsTFX. You know, Nava post getting there, rookie. They said, you're going to give me the baseline, no problem. He nailed that one. Not soon after that, he went there again. I forget which guy it was for UMB, but got him off his feet, got him to the line on the foul.
Right.
Like Nava, you know, we said it during the broadcast. He literally played like it was an 82-game regular season all at the Scotiabank Center. Like the pressure of it all didn't faze him one instance. And I was a little bit with you. I thought it was going to be Roker and Demboya kind of feel it out at the start of the game.
Right.
It was Nava and Marcus Masters do that. And really, I thought vsTFX let Masters kind of off the hook a little bit early on. He was jittery to start. Remember, he dropped the ball out of bounds 90 feet away from the hoop, gave X an extra possession there. He committed a silly foul on that ensuing possession for vsTFX. He's rattled. But then what does X do? Masters goes down and drives baseline, the help side, nowhere to be found, no communication at all. He gets the wide open layup, settles his nerves. Couple possessions later, Masters hits a three. He's the type of guy that, you know what, he's like Nava. He's young, he's emotional, he can run either way. But I thought both teams did a really poor job of kind of turning off the guards to start because it got the engine running and really defense wasn't, you know, the forte early on the ball.
No, I feel like X this year especially were very ball screen driven. And so they were really testing UMB's coverages and how they were going to guard things, how they were going to guard their 1-4 ball screen at the top of the floor, how they were going to guard their fist play, which is a 1-5 ball guard and a ball screen play, how they were going to guard their motion, which is ball screen continuous from side to side. I thought they really put them in those actions early. And then UMB was running their wheel play a lot early, which is with Demboya at the high post and cuts kind of off of him to try to get, you know, the driving lanes open and to pull away the bigs from vsTFX away from the basket. And it was interesting to see how they were going. Spurl had a couple shots early kind of from his spot, which is the left break of the three. He hit one of those early. You know, both teams, like you said, the defensive intensity, it just seemed like they were kind of just feeling each other out and they were kind of getting their pet go-to actions to start the game.
Yeah, I thought it was great that at half, we'll get there, but Konchalski just mentioned that X's game plan was to just run UMB into the ground, and that's what they did. They just outlasted them, and because they had to play on the Friday night, the Lags couldn't carry them through 4 quarters, but they make a heck of a show. UMB loses the second quarter 46-34, so X gets the better of them, and they just run to the lane, using Roker a lot more in the second. Roker doing work, offensive and defensive rebounds. Nava keeps doing his thing. So anything that you noticed in the second that kind of broke them away besides, maybe Lags getting tired?
I wrote it down in the 6:45 mark of the second quarter. After free throws, UMB really likes to set up a 2-2-1 press. And UMB took a couple of free throws. X broke the press and got a lob to Roker by breaking the press. And I thought that was kind of the beginning of everything, kind of the beginning of the flow change for X. X is known to be a team that really responds with momentum. Like if the momentum gets their way and they're trying to run and they get that part of their game going, they can be lethal. And so that dunk by Roker really kind of woke them up, and I felt kind of the floodgates opened a little bit for them at that point, really kind of pushed that lead. We're getting things early in the shot clock in transition. And to me, that was kind of the turning point of the second quarter.
Yeah, and it was Justin Andrew who threw that lob to Roker. I think that was a good adjustment, whether it came, just from the veterans saying we're going to do it or from the coaching staff. Towards the end of the first, there were some transition plays by the rookies with Nava and DeAndre Reddick where they had a couple really tough takes, should have been layups, odd man breaks in St. FX's favor. Kind of got bailed out at the end. Reddick hit a 3 at the end of the first quarter to kind of make up for his mistake. But then coming into the second, you're right. Justin Andrew, as much as, you and I were saying at one point, Matt, it's nice that he gets to play off the ball a little bit because he can be a lethal catch and shoot guy and works well off the ball. But he needed to get a little more assertive and put his stamp on the offense. He and Roker's chemistry all year, not just on the lob, has been fantastic. A lot of teams have a great big guy, and they don't have that one guard that's always going to look to feed him. I think that's every time Roker's on Andrew's side, he looks to put it in there, especially if it's one-on-one with Roker. And there's not too many times he considers himself in a defensive mismatch on the other side. So, you got to love that chemistry. Totally agree there. But the thing I like about Roker is it's not just the stuff in the paint. Like he's out there getting deflections. I remember at one point he steals it, gets a deflection on a guy, falls out of bounds, throws it behind his back, starts to break for St. FX. That guy really is gone from, a 6 out of 10 player to an AUS first team All-Star in one summer. I don't know what he did over the summer, but it was exponential growth. And man, he was fun to watch all weekend.
Oh yeah, was for sure the most improved player in the conference, if not the country this year. He's always been just a freak athlete who you watch in warm up and you're just like, whoa. And then, he really evolved his game this year where you had to bring some extra attention to him in the post because he would hurt you that way. And that really opened things for shooters. But Adam, you mentioned Reddick, and I really felt the key. We've talked in a lot of these podcasts about your star players being your best players. I thought the role players for X this game were probably the difference. I think they got a little bit out of Reddick. They got a little bit out of White. And I felt like Utsalo did a good job of defending Dumboya at times. Legale, I don't know if he scored, but he had like 9 assists or something like that, right? And, those guys were really beneficial. And, I think that was kind of the difference at the end of the game. As Konchalski said, we want to run them off the floor because of the depth. And, I think UMB was playing 6 or 7 guys, but those role players for X, that was by far, I think, their best game of the season.
Yeah, Neil and I were talking kind of prior to the podcast, and some of the dark horse guys, like I love Michael Utsalo's game. I thought it was a great idea to start him and have him kind of hold up Dumboya early on to try to slow that train down for UMB. Thought that was a great move. And the other young fella I like a lot is Sidney Okeke. He comes in there, man. He's kind of raw, but he bangs, he bounces. He was 2 or 3 from the field at 4 points. And Jamie White came in this year. Krause, the strength and conditioning guy down there at X, told me he dropped about 20 pounds over the summer. I think I mentioned it on the broadcast. His body was totally changed coming into the season. And between Okiki, White, and Dondre Reddick, they got a solid 15 points off the bench. And Jaden Smith hit a bomb at 1.2 to add 3 more on top of that. So you're absolutely right. For a team that wants to run, that wants to kind of bear UNB's legs early, like Neil was saying, they did that by 9 guys pushing the pace consistently, which is not always easy.
Yeah, and I think for a team that was very reliant on their top 3 guys for the most part during the season, I'm not saying always, because they obviously had a great season and they have a great team, but, Roker, Andrew, Nava were – when you were looking at the stat sheet at the end of the game, those are the guys you were looking at, right? And for those other guys to step up at this time was huge for them.
Yeah, it was just a really great second quarter, but okay, so X has it really rolling here into the last minute. Roker charges Malak, and the UNB's fan section, which was crazy all weekend, just goes nuts. They're down 19 at this time. The UNB bench is on the floor. They're cheering. They love this big charge. And, it just put a little magic in their hat one more time. It's like that pitcher 3 they hit against CBU the night before. It sparked something.
On that bucket for UNB.
Leotard's missed 4 point blank.
And that's going to be a foul against Roker as he put the shoulder.
Well, before we get to the second half, I think it happens in both the second and third quarter that X absolutely falls apart in the final 3 minutes. Coaches all the time talk about finishing quarters. The way the second was going, it seemed like it was never going to be close.
Yep.
But the midway point there, you remember, I think it was Simpson, hard fouls Nava. Coach Baker has to take a timeout. It was around 4:20-ish in the game. And then UNB comes out after that, turns the ball over 5 straight times, right? There's a charge mixed in there. But X is absolutely rolling. I think it was a 24-5 or 24-3 run. UNB was stuck on 27 points for about 6 minutes of the quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They got off of that with, what did I put, about 39 seconds left, something like that. They get a bucket, then Spurl gets fouled. They start going to the line, and then the charge happens, wakes them up a little bit. Next thing you know, boom, 7-0 run, right? And when you're trying to make a comeback, we're not going to go into the Cape Breton comeback too much, man. But that's what happens, right? Like little points at the end of the quarter all add up when you're trying to come all the way back. And that 7-0 run was real costly for X going in the hat.
Yeah, that's right. And it was Leotard got a 2+1 right under the basket on a turnover, and I just felt like Leotard had a rough game to that point, and kind of got him back into it. He missed a lot of free throws in. I think
I think it was Leotard who had a layup at the buzzer, but didn't.
Yeah.
They weren't quite
Masters passed it to him, and it was counting down.
Yeah, like X survives that too, but that could have been a 9-0 run in 39 seconds. So,
sure.
But yeah, one of those things.
Right on. All right, so after not a great second, but a great finish to the second, the UNB Reds start to get it rolling in the second half with the big boys, Demboya and Masters. What did you see in their game that kind of changed the pace for UNB? And maybe we'll start with you, Adam.
Yeah, well, Masters started to do what he did, kind of got the dribble penetration downhill. People were a little worried about him at one point. He had to go get his entire leg wrapped there. He looked it was a hammy or something that just popped on him, but he's a warrior, came in, didn't lose much of his speed or pace, so I'll give him that. And, X maybe let their foot off the gas a little bit defensively, feeling a little bit comfortable, which I guess is natural, and particularly with a young team, I think that's going to happen a little bit. But, once again, I think that's when the stars step up. Zara Roker started running rim to rim as hard and as fast as he could, and that dude is fast for, however 6'10", 6'11" he is. He sealed up at the charge circle twice in a row, got a couple buckets, admittedly got gassed out a little bit after that. UNB took a timeout there, around the 6-minute-ish that gave him the blow to finish the quarter. But, man, I think the Stars kind of stepped up for both teams and tried to assert themselves. It was really back and forth to start in the third.
Yeah, I think we were chatting about it when we talked about UNB before, and they just stay true to themselves and who they are as a team. And They have just such great one-on-one players. They have great players, great three-point shooting. And so when they get going, they're just so tough to stop. And, you know, Masters getting downhill into the lane, that collapses things. Then you have shooters everywhere out there who can get going and start hitting. You know, Spurl can hit, Dumboya can hit, Pitcher can hit, all these guys. And it's just kind of what they do. And they just the confidence that they have in who they are as a team. Again, you have to give a lot of credit to Coach Baker, you know, and Coach Daly there, who coached these guys up to do what they do, right? Like, they just know that if they hang around just enough, that they're going to be fine. And that's what happens when you go play them in Fredericton. And, you know, they haven't really had necessarily the most success at the Scotiabank Center over the last few years, besides, you know, obviously winning there with Masters. But they just had this confidence about them over this past season that they knew what they were. They you know, seemed like they got along well. It seemed like they were fighting for one another. Neil talked about it multiple times in the game when we were talking about our game before, and in this game, it was noticeable to see that bench up, you know, cheering for them, you know, rallying, trying to rally everybody together, you know, stick together. And they just, you just felt, you know, even in that third quarter, you know, second quarter, when the lead was getting bigger there by X, you just kind of felt that UMB was hanging around. Like, it could have been a lot worse than what it was. And, you know, going into the fourth quarter, they made it a heck of a game.
Yeah, it seemed like that all game long, right? Like, you're watching and you're feeling it, and then you take a look up at the score bug in the corner, and it's only 14, or it's even only 16 when it feels like a 30-point game. Even
the beginning of the game, Adam, I felt like X just came out and it looked like they were getting everything that they wanted. Yep. You know, I know we're going back, but it just kind of a reflection of the whole game, I felt, where I was like, oh, X is going to roll this game. And then you looked up, oh, it's tied. And then, oh, X is rolling again. Oh, it's only 12. And they just kind of stuck around just enough.
And that's what I think, you know, if you're an X fan, it kind of bodes really well for the future, is that if these young guys who were playing in big spots, maybe, like, no one expected X to maybe be as good as they were this year, this early. You know, they're kind of aiming for that Nationals next year that they're hosting. But this is all, you know, learning experience can be overvalued, overstated, but they're scary now. And if they cut out 3 or 4 or 5 mistakes with these rookies and young guys, maybe they do completely run away with it in these moments we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. The youth on that team is very exciting to see over at X. And, you know, they kind of let the rope loose there after the third. It's third end, 65-49. And, you know, the game ends 84-77, but 84-77. So
yeah, I was just saying it was just really close. I felt like it was kind of the same score after the third quarter, you know, in our game the night before.
It felt like it.
It was, because Adam mentions, you know, they needed 15 last night. They need 17 tonight to overcome. And it's just like, wow, they're in the same position.
They would have been nowhere close to that, Neil, you know, to go back to the finishing quarters thing. So they finished the third quarter on a 10-3 run. UMB does. So you're talking about giving yourself a chance. They've trademarked that at the Scotiabank Center.
And they all that stuff that you know, Konchowski was talking about, as far as like running them off the floor and things, you know, trying to play up tempo, kind of went in the opposite favor. I felt in the fourth quarter. I thought UMB really picked up their defensive intensity. They started picking up full court. They started trapping. I think there was a couple calls. I remember watching it live, kind of on an angle, you know, kind of at the, not quite at the top, but kind of on the angle. And I just felt there was a couple of calls, or there was like a shot here or there. It was just, it felt like UMB was going to do it. And then I think there was like a steal and somebody stepped out of bounds, or I can't remember.
Dribble. They forced Andrews into a double dribble, and they didn't get that call.
Yeah, that was what it was. And then I there was just they had UMB had a wide open shot in the corner, I think. It was just anyway. It was kind of a crazy game, but X did make some big plays down the stretch to kind of seal the win.
Well, they did just enough, STFX, like they were shooting 53% at half and finished the game at, 47.5%.
Right.
Which saved, right? They shot it just well enough in those looks they got. And it was a bit of the opposite of what UMB was doing early on. UMB only finished the game with 13 turnovers after as much as they did it in a row in the second quarter. And then X was really loose and goose with the ball, and it finished the game at 20 turnovers. It's, you have 20 turnovers in a playoff game against a tough team like UMB, you better be shooting it real good in the shots you get if you're going to win the game. And that, at the end, was the margin. But UMB started shooting the leather off the ball as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Spurl and Masters, these guys can get hot. And, that not
to do in clutch moments, Spurl hit a big three there late that just really brought the ball game to I think it was 1 point. So
yeah, they echoing your point earlier, Coach, is they play for each other. That momentum, that UMB on their chest means something, and they don't ever feel like that. They never quit on it, I guess, is the best thing to say.
No, they gave themselves a chance again, and I really felt like they were going to do it. But X made just enough plays down the stretch, hit a three late. Roker had an and one at one point during the fourth quarter too that kind of like settled things from what I can recall. But yeah, it was a great game, and with X making it to the final this year, in a lot of ways, it was just such a great season for them overall. I don't think that there was, many people that saw that for them to, get the bye and then to make the final. And all hats off to Coach Konchalski, Coach Vernon, and the improvement of a lot of their players this year. I thought, like I said, Roker really made a step up, and the addition of Nava, who's the AUS Rookie of the Year this year, were the two biggest differences, in my opinion, of what saw them kind of take that next step this year.
Yeah, you need some guys to step up. Roker's line, 20 points, 11 boards, 7 to 10 from the field, 6 to 10 from the free throw line. That's the sort of stuff that wins championships. You get a couple guys playing that well. It was interesting. I mentioned it a couple times in the broadcast. I think we got a shot of it at one point. X had it on the back of their warm-up shirts, "Waking up our history." That was kind of their mantra. And you need to have the horses to do that. Like that history, the 3 national championships, you think of the type of teams they had and the type of athletic players, not just with the guards, but the big guys inside too, being some supreme athletes. That was the proper time, I think, to kind of break that out and set the mold. And people got to see them in the championship game. Recruits were just that much more attracted to making this run at the championship next year. It really is lining up for them, man. And credit to the staff for sure. They're putting all the chips in the right spot.
What a time that I came. The year before I got there, St. Mary's won the national title. My first 2 years at CBU, StFX won the back-to-back national titles. I think the first guy I ever closed out as a player was Fred Perry, and who was all Canadian MVP of the league. Man. I think I closed him out. I got there with my hands up, and he was already dunking it at the rim.
He was gone.
Oh yeah, he was like, I was like, what's going on?
Welcome to the AUS.
Oh man, they were so good back then.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
But it'd be nice, you know what I mean? Like you said, our league is underrated for sure.
Yeah.
DAL has, using the same sort of term, woken people up nationally to what's happening out here. X is going to take a similar run at it next year. I know your visions are exactly that at CBU. We got all kinds of programs that are just saying we are here nationally, and you can tell by the players that are coming in, and it's just like a future super bright for our league.
I agree.
So X wins 84-77, and we'll get to the SMU-DAL game now. SMU, DAL just ran through the season. Only one loss to the X team that they eventually faced in the finals. That DAL-SMU game ends 84-64. We don't have to go quarter to quarter here, guys, but what did you guys like to see? Maybe we'll talk about SMU first. Coach Skinner, you ready to do that?
Sure. I thought SMU this season, it was just a different SMU team in some ways than normal. just didn't really have the same inside presence as they normally had, but man, were they athletic. They are just crazy athletic in what they can do. And talking about a team that stays true to themselves, they are consistently, Coach Tossig has them playing consistently the same way every single year. And by the time they get to the Scotiabank Center, they're playing well. And it's because of the type of defense that they play where, they do press a little bit here and there, but they're very good in the half court, very good individually with keeping guys in front of them. They follow the scouting report to a T as far as knowing who to shoot and who's a driver. They know how to get the ball out of certain places on the floor. They do a really good job with that. And then this year, I just thought Janiel Johnson had just a great season. He's just so explosive of what he can do. He's almost better. He's so hard to scout if he gets a defensive rebound or if he gets an offensive rebound. That's kind of where he's the best. And that way, he kind of reminded me a little bit of Justine Colley when she played there. She was otherworldly, but it was almost one of those things where when we played against St. Mary's when she was playing, we said almost like box her out when she's on defense so that she can't get the defensive rebound, because if she got the defensive rebound, it was over. Yeah. And same with Janiel. If he gets the defensive rebound, he's able to go. That's kind of when they're at their best. He's just so good with his body control. And then like 2 or 3 times a game, he's going to do something that you just like never really seen. Like he's going to get a block. He's going to tip a 3-point attempt. He's going to pin somebody off the glass. He's going to get an offensive rebound put back. Like he's just going to do things like that to kind of, get things going with momentum for them. And he's just a great player.
And in this game, he was the only thing that kept him afloat, really, right? He was 7 of 11 from the field. He's a streaky shooter. He can knock it down from outside. He was 3 of 4 from downtown in this game as well, and 4 steals. So you're talking about the blocks and the defensive side, but all conference defender without question. Now you're used to seeing St. Mary's with kind of a 3-guard attack, right? You think back in the day with Marquise there and some of the other guys that just one year after the next. Unfortunately, it kind of caught up to them this year. Sebastian Gray and Dante Mitchell, great players, athletic guys, in this game really didn't put an imprint on it at all. Mitchell was only 0 of 3, played 14 minutes. Sebastian Gray was 1 of 6, I believe, had 2 points. They needed the backcourt support and didn't quite get it off the bench. Neville Provo came in. He was only 0 of 3 in 17 minutes. Credit, you talk about not having the bigs inside. Should give a little shout out to Travis Adams here.
Yeah, Travis is great, man.
Yeah, he's an underrated guy. He's made a few stops along the way in different teams, went to Holland College, back at SMU. But his maturity this year really showed through. Was a guy they could run the ball through at times, was willing to pass it, was dedicated to rebounding, had 5 big boards, 2 offensive in this game to go with his 11 points. I think Travis is the sort of guy that without him as a kind of a glue guy, it could have really went off the rails multiple times during the season because they hit some serious rough patches along the way. Now, the one thing I want to ask both of you guys about is they brought Nikita Kasango back. 21 minutes he played in this game. Great leader, all-time warrior, nothing but respect for Nikita Kasango, but hadn't played in maybe months, right? Mm-hmm. Not maybe, hadn't played in months. How much does that throw the guard play off? Now, we're saying all this, Dal played great defense like they do. So that credit Dalhousie slowing these guys down. But how much of a factor do you think, that the introduction of Kasango back had to do with this?
If he wanted to play, it's hard to stop him from wanting to play. I think he had used his year of eligibility, so I don't think that was a factor necessarily in the decision that was going in. Man, Nikita's so good. There's certain guys in the league that you can prepare for, and it just doesn't matter, and he's one of them. With what he does, his athleticism, his shooting ability. They geared this team for him to be the point guard. the whole season. So for them to make it to where they made it was all hats off again to Jonah, and what he did with this team this year was great to see. But yeah, I mean, if he wants to come back and play, I thought he was a big factor in the quarterfinal win, and then just probably that second game in 2 days after not playing a month was probably an issue for him.
And I think that's worth noting too, is, Coach Tossip's one of the most underrated coaches, I would say, in our league in terms of scout and see what they run and staying true to their style, defending the other team, all that stuff. They have a great staff there taking care of business. And by no means am I saying that's a shot at them with this Kasongo play.
No.
Because a little bit is that's coach, right?
Yeah.
Like you push certain buttons, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But like you said, when you got a guy who's your heart and soul like that, sometimes it's just hard to say no.
And I think, the last 2 years, Kasongo saw Bronner just dominate the weekend, and they dragged that SMU team to the finals twice. And now here it is, Kasongo's time to shine, and that unfortunate injury keeps him out all season long. And, I thought it was going to be a perfect year because Q Gibson, after last year, I expected him to be the AUS MVP, honestly. His hops, he can defend anybody. He's got great speed, really good transition guy for the size. And he had to be this walk-in leader this year. And I think that's what Kasongo, he would have brought to this team. He would have been the fifth-year guy that had walked to the finals years before, and this is how we do it, guys. So I think Jonah put him in the lineup for that reason, is just to say, Scotiabank Center, it's a different floor here. Let's see if Nikita's got any magic left in that left knee, and he went for it. And, I think it might have definitely thrown the other guards off, because now Mitchell and even Q Gibson has the ball in his hands less than I think, they had played all year with more time and more ball time. So that was kind of the point I wanted to make, was experience that Kasongo didn't have the opportunity to lead this Huskies team.
Now, all that being said, outside of the third quarter that they lost by 12, they hung right around with Dalhousie the whole time, and including winning the fourth 2018. Now, I know it was the result wasn't in question at that point, but Dalhousie had to play, man. 4 or 5 starters in double digits. Like, they weren't necessarily – I don't know if we talked about it in this podcast or somewhere in the past, but maybe didn't look their sharpest. This particular AUS weekend did the Tigers. So, there's a reason St. Mary's made the semifinal, pushed this team. The Battle of Halifax was well documented, but Dal had to come out and play.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good transition to this juggernaut Dal. I think this was the team that Rick has kind of envisioned since he's been there, that this was kind of the team that he felt had a real chance to win the national championship, as we saw moving forward this season. But man, they were something else. And I felt it was so deserving of Keevan to be the MVP of the league this year. He just made all the right plays for them when they needed them. The amount of times where you would watch film, and I mean, again, speaking from my own experience of just the times where the shot clock was low and he would make that shot, or get that steal and a dunk, make the right play. And I mean, he makes them pretty unique. He's 6'5". There's not a lot of guys his size playing that position. Good athleticism, just a good enough shooter, gets into the rim. And they had times where they could play 5 shooters and really keep you on your toes. But again, the one thing about Rick and what he does there is that he just puts guys in. It just doesn't matter. Like, it could be a 3-point game against St. Mary's on January 5th. And, most coaches would be like, how do we finish this quarter strong? And he'll be like, 13th man, you go in right now. Like, and he just doesn't care. Like, he'll just put those guys in. And then what that does is it prepares him for games like this, where if you need a spark, if you need somebody to do it, he feels that he can go to somebody. So if it's like Adam Sellen or Brett Martindale or, Jordan Brathwaite, or, in the past it's been like Maurice Cawley, or, just guys like that who could just kind of go in there and give him a spark. That's what he does. And you know, and then you got to obviously talk about Alex Carson. I mean, that guy's a stud. Like, how do you bring the guy off the bench the whole year because he's dealing with injuries, and then he goes and probably has the most efficient season individually of almost anybody in the country. I mean, I think he averaged like 19 minutes a game, 14 points on like 55% shooting and 50 from three. Like, this guy's unbelievable.
So
he's one of the best players in the country too. And that those three guys, Kapos, Vino, and Carson, those guys, you know, kind of make them go. Those guys were special.
Well, it's interesting because the temptation would have been for Alex Carson once he was, you know, under pretty good legs towards the end of the year to put him in the starting lineup. But why would you really do that? You know,
they did a couple of games, but not all the time. Yeah,
not all the time. But you know, against a team against St. Mary's, I think that's where Coach Plato gets a lot of credit. You talk about pushing the right buttons.
Right.
Keegan Vino is surrounded by defense. You know, you got Ochu, Wilson, Burrows, Kapos is in there blocking shots. Keevan doesn't have – he's a great defender, but doesn't have to take on the best matchups all the time.
Yeah.
So you put Burrows in that starting lineup against Smew, mix it up against the guards. You pull Carson in, and you talk about efficiency, man. 6 of 12. We all think of Alex Carson as a three-point shooter. Only made 1 3 in this ball game. Still at 15 points.
Yeah.
Right? Made some inside buckets off the dribble, pull out. This guy is truly a warrior, and it's an all-around lineup, man. Like it was heavy favorite betting for Dal coming in with good reason because we're going through these guys, and they could start 7 guys, right, interchangeably with it easy.
But I know we're going to talk about him and them more come our next podcast when we talk about the final, or 2 from now when we talk about the final. But the one guy who I don't think gets any credit is Jordan Wilson. Like that guy, like you're talking about warriors.
Yeah.
That guy
Man.
plays his ass off. Like he
goes toe to toe with everybody.
He just doesn't care. Like he doesn't care who's out there. He's just going and playing. And I have to say it too, because he has just killed us the last couple of years. Like he's just that guy. We found ways to like get Kapos off the floor, you know, and things like that. And then all of a sudden Wilson comes in and just bodies you and offensive rebound and just plays with so much tenacity. And again, that's why Dal are what they are. They just have all these guys that play so hard.
I thought Wilson was awesome at Nationals. I think that, you know, when he can keep it under wraps emotionally and you know, he'll fight you. Like,
for sure. That's why I love that guy.
Mentality. But when he keeps it on the level and just uses that spark, you know, in a positive way physically, it's a game changer for their defense and both ends, really.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk more about it in the when the final.
For sure.
It's going to be great.
For sure.
Yeah, that probably does it here, boys. We got about 4 minutes left in this time, so we'll wrap it for this week. But this time I'll throw it to you, Coach Skin. You got anything special on today for this podcast?
I just got my CBU on because I want to promote. We have a new program called Capers at Home. You can check out our Capers Instagram where we're pushing people to stay active during the COVID and the quarantine. So go check it out. Go Capers Go on Instagram and on Twitter.
Nice. Adam, anything coming up this week for you, buddy? You enjoy the week? Anything to add to the podcast?
This is it, man. Watching more Last Dance tonight. Everyone in Cape Breton, no one's working harder at home workouts than Coach Matt Skin. So you want to do a 1v1 challenge.
His dogs are looking ripped. They've been walking the neighborhood for weeks.
Oh, man, my dogs are ripped. You know what? We're probably done now, but I find that there's not a whole lot new in these Last Dance stuff yet. Like there's some new footage. Like I get it, and it's great, but I mean, it was right in my heyday, you know, the MJ stuff, right? So like,
well, you say that, then Tony Kukoc comes out and says in ESPN, I was so focused on what I was doing, I'm learning new things watching the documentary. Like, come on, man. You know, like
that's bullshit, man.
Come on,
Tony. Come on. Footage, I guess it's just going to keep rolling after these.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I want, though. I want it to keep progressing because, like, they're doing the backstory, which is really good on all the players right now. But I want to see like the during the season stuff, like that final year.
Jordan really gets chirping.
Yeah, because like Adam, I know you got to watch, but like it was known that Rodman asked for a vacation. Like it was known. Like I remember, he went to Vegas for 2 days and they didn't think they were going to get him back. Like I remember that. Adam, I can't ruin it for you. I can't wait to hear what. Did you read Twitter about it yet, Adam?
No, I tried to stay away. I
can't say anything then. We'll talk about it next time.
I can't wait till Cooper Ward says to you, Coach, I'm going to Halley for a week.
You won't see him for a week.
Listen, if I was paying him $5 million, I would say go. But that's not.
That's exactly right.
That's not the case, right?
He might never come back.
No, exactly. So
well, this was fun, boys. Good night.
Yeah, great night.
Yeah. All right. I think the plan is to have a special guest on the finals podcast too. So everybody listening, be sure to check our next 2 out. So have a great week, everybody. And that's everything from Two Shots on the Ball.
Let go.